very good morning to all. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of AFST Mumbai chapter and Sherpas to this uh, Food Techie Sherpas session. As we begin with the session, I would like to request Madam Ms. Shubhaprada Nashtala, Vice President AFSTI, to please enlighten our participants for today about the work AFSC Mumbai chapter and the team of CSMB does, and to formally welcome our guest speaker for today. Shubha ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Samiksha, and a very warm good morning to everybody. It's my pleasure to be part of the inaugural session for today's Food Techie Sherpa. I see many of our participants are repeat participants, so I may need not spend way too much time in talking about the thought process on how Food Techie Sherpa started up. FSTI Mumbai and increasingly the Chamber are both very familiar names to all of the food science and nutrition, food engineering community across the country. With over 40 chapters across the country, we have a national presence as being the voice for the food technologists, food scientists in the country. Mumbai chapter, being the second oldest chapter, I think has been path breaking in the kind of initiatives it brings forward to build a connect. Samiksha, can we have the next slide, please? The entire intent of Food Techie Sherpa was that this year, when we look at the Mumbai chapter objectives, it was decided that it will be a student first year for us. AFSTI headquarters is also hosting their annual conference ICFOST in Mumbai this year at D.Y. Patil University. So we will have a kind of a valedictory for the Food Techie Sherpa there and hope to meet many of you there. With that initiative of Student First, this edu series of Food Techie Sherpa was started up. Can I have the next slide? Yeah. So this is what AFST has always been doing, been the bridge, the connect, and creation of a network between the regulator, academia, students, and industry. So this is the intent of AFST. This is what AFST Mumbai has been doing for over 4 decades now, been the bridge, the connect between regulators, academia, students, and industry. And what was felt was that for students to understand the current practices in industry would make it a win-win. Students will get exposure to a wide variety of career opportunities, understand what's happening in industry, and industry would get more skilled students coming in to work when they start their careers, which is why the edu series topics are chosen with great care. They do not cover the basics of food science. You are already learning that in your courses, but the intent of the edu series has been that we identify expert speakers from industry who are able to give you a taste of what is currently happening in research in their specific areas of work. So we are delighted to welcome Dr. Rachana today. It's our it's our privilege that she's been able to take time out, Dr. Rachana Bhoite from Dr. Reddys Labs, and I will shortly be introducing her in greater detail and welcoming her to take the session forward. But before that, a little bit of what FST Mumbai and the Chamber do. Uh, Earlier slide. Let me just finish up on AFST on some of the areas that we are working in. Networking we spoke about, but a lot of work also happens by Mumbai chapter in creating a connect with MSMEs and startups. So if you are doing research projects, let us know. We'll be able to connect you with industry who is applying that areas of research. Mentorship, yes, we have an active mentoring program where you can reach out to the office bearers and the local executive committee for any guidance that you may need. We have, in addition to that, there are a number of conferences that AFST organizes, and as students, very often we are able to provide complimentary access for you. We give you volunteering opportunities, which gives you an chance to meet with all of the expert speakers who come in, and of course the access to participating at discounted rates for other conferences such as ICFOST. AFSC is also going to be supporting a number of national conferences apart from ICFOST, which is our own, such as the IUFOST, such as the ANUGA, and you get either free access or highly discounted access to all of these. Going forward to what the chamber has been doing, the chamber is, yeah, let's move on to the chamber. Thanks. The chamber was started up during the pandemic where a need was felt that industry first, a small industry first approach is needed for creating connects and for hand holding, especially during the difficult period of the COVID time. And the intent was to be not just a voice to put up the needs of the small and medium businesses, but also be an enabler. So, a number of initiatives that the chamber does, such as the Food Tech Pathshala, I think many of you may have benefited from this skill based e learning platform. There are over 40 food science related courses at extremely what should I say, negligible costs, which allow you to get certified, allow you to learn, allow you to prepare for a number of entrance exams. We've had over 10,000 plus subscribers to the Food Tech Pathshala. There is the Purna Brahma magazine. It is a quarterly magazine, reaches well above 3 lakhs now. And any of you who are wishing to contribute to the Purna Brahma, please feel free to do that. Each quarter, there is a specific topic that is decided on, and any work that you do towards that topic, you're welcome to send in your articles and they will be considered for publication. Uh, the chamber organizes study tours and exhibitions both for professionals and for PhD students for enabling them to pick up skills, pick up a stronger network so that they are able to uh, connect well in their areas of businesses. Knowledge series trainings, very many, not just related to food science. This is one example of a knowledge series, but there are very many that happen across taxation, for example, or marketing, the entire gamut of skills and knowledge that are needed for a startup. These are conducted under the chamber's aegis. And there is a women entrepreneurship cell to specifically help guide the women entrepreneurs. Since inception, the chamber has successfully empowered over 2,000 entrepreneurs, supported of which 500 are women entrepreneurs, nurtured 150 startups. You would have read about the recent BRSI and the Chamber Award, which will allow for a fellowship to be received. Please do apply if you're doing any work in that area. We facilitated the formation of 20 farmer producer organizations and empowered over 150 self-help. So this is the kind of work that the chamber does. And any help that is needed as you complete your education and look towards entering your careers, chamber is there to support that. With that, I'll go forward to the honor of welcoming our speaker for today. Ma'am, Dr. Rachana, a very, very warm welcome on behalf of AFSTI Mumbai chapter and the Chamber for Small and Medium Business, Advancement of Small and Medium Businesses.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. As a quick introduction, I will not be able to do justice to her wide experience, but as a very quick introduction, she has close to 20 years of work experience in FMCG, nutrition, and specifically the nutraceutical industry. She's a PhD from the highly acclaimed MS University, Baroda. Currently, ma'am is heading the Nutrition Science and Clinical Research Division for the nutraceutical business of Dr. Reddy's Labs. And she's acknowledged as a leading expert in both clinical trials as well as in conducting real world evidence studies. So it's a delight and an honor that she's been able to take time out on a Saturday, which is very precious to most working people, and come forward to share her knowledge with our student members. Ma'am has prior work experience before Dr. Reddy. She's been with JSK Consumer Health. She's worked there as a senior scientist with products specifically for diabetics. She's worked with PepsiCo, handled the Tropicana and the Quaker portfolios, and also worked with the government of Gujarat on the anemia control project. He's authored multiple book chapters, both in national and international publications, with very many research papers as well. So, Dr. Rachana, we are all very, very eager, ma'am, to hear from you. Uh, Thank you again, once again, for taking time out, and I hand the stage over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this introduction. And I'm delighted to address this topic for the students who have come up today. And I remember myself when, 20 years back when we were students, this kind of programs were not there. But right now, when I heard ma'am saying about what the chapter is doing for the students and the student first, which is their priority, this platform becomes very important for the students because see the connect with the industry. We all study, we do our courses, but ultimately we all look for job, right? So what are the job avenues after doing food tech, food science? That is a question which is always there in the mind of students. So and we all pass out, right? There are so many colleges every year, so many pass outs are there. So what differentiates you from the other person is the connects which you make in the industry. And this kind of food series gives you a platform where you can connect with the industry people. If you want any help from them, you can connect with them. If they are not able to answer you, they can connect you to the right person. So I feel this kind of sessions are very beneficial from the technical knowledge which you get during that half an hour or 1 hour. That may not be a complete plethora of the subject, but the connect which you make with the speaker, and the speaker is from the industry or an expert, that is very important for the students. So, with that background, I will start my presentation. Allow me to share my screen. Host has disabled participants screen sharing. So can you please on it so that I can?
Nilesh, can you please do it? Just a minute, ma'am.
Sure, sure. Take your time. So we will keep this session extremely interactive. I know many people, almost 90 people have joined this, but we will make it interactive and see to it that many of you can interact and answer the questions. That works with everyone? Yeah. Now I can share. Yeah. Just let me know once you see my screen.
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Sure. So the first slide over here is for background. And why are we all here? Why are we discussing nutraceuticals and all the details on it? So, nutraceutical is a new word in the industry. Like 6 years back, many of you must not have even heard of it, right? Suddenly, in last 2 to 3 years, or we can say 5 years, there is a boom of nutraceuticals. and why this has happened. So, what are the consumer insights for that? And why we start with the consumer insight? Because in any of the product development, you say it normal health supplement or nutraceutical, or even you take the pharmaceutical, everywhere you start with the consumer insight, like what the consumer wants. Then you start developing your product. Likewise, your chapter must have identified like what is the lacunae between students after they come out of the MSCs, and what they should know so that they get better jobs. And based on that research insights which they got from the students, they must have started this kind of series or chapters, right? In the similar way, the consumer insights are very important for any of the product development. So why nutraceuticals are on rise these days? Because the lifestyle problems have increased. We all see these days that diabetes is on rise, the prevalence is increasing. You talk about osteoporosis, you talk about hypertension, all cardiometabolic diseases, everything is on rise. But the consumer wants to have healthy eating at the same time. So healthy eating is increasing as part of consumers' life, but people do not believe manufacturers' health claim. So all see these days there are so many people on Instagram who are making reels on what the companies are making claims are not true and all that. So there is always a doubt in people's mind when they read the claims on the pack. So how do you authenticate that claims? So, clinical is one way of doing that. And consumers have an attitude behavior gap over healthy eating. Why this point is coming over here? Because, see, we all want to be healthy. We all know that junk food is not good for us. Still, over the weekend, when we go with our friends, we go to McD's, we go to KFC, and we eat the food, right? So, the attitude and the behavior, there is a gap. And because of that, there is increase in this diseases. And therefore, the need of nutraceutical comes in. Looking at the health spectrum of the complete plethora of food. Now, when you see this, where does nutraceutical lie? Nutraceutical lies in between the spectrum of food ranging from food to pharma drug. So, if you see the left hand side, which is a food, a normal individual who solely depends on the normal food. Suppose somebody is not taking any food supplement, just eating his daily food. As in, I can give you an example over here. For example, we make any normal food, we do add turmeric to it, right? So that turmeric becomes a normal food to us. But when that turmeric, which we are eating as a normal food, we extract the actives from there and give it in a potential dose in a capsule form or in another form, it becomes a nutraceutical. So, food is the normal food which we eat. Coming to the nutritional supplement, so we daily pop up something, for the general wellness. Like we know that vitamin D deficiency is prevalent. Vitamin B12 deficiency is prevalent mostly in the vegetarian population. So we try to pop up vitamin D or vitamin B12 supplements or Centrum or any of the multivitamin which has come. So we try to pop up those, and those are the nutritional supplements for the general wellness, right? Then comes the nutraceutical. So people with common health problems like diabetes or cholesterol, so where the extract of the normal food can be of benefit. For example, somebody needs antioxidants, and we all know just one example over here, like for foods, we took turmeric. Now, the curcumins of it are the actives, and those curcumin can act as anti-inflammatory in our body. So when a potent dose of that is taken, and it can help anti inflammations and all which is happening in your body, and inflammation can happen in osteoporosis, in cardiovascular diseases, and it is very important to take care of that. So in that case, nutraceutical becomes very important. As you move the spectrum, then comes the medical nutrition. Now, medical nutrition, the nutrition which is specially designed for patients of diseased condition, like cancer nutrition, liver disease, nutrition for dialysis patient, these are specially designed for that patient. Suppose in cancer nutrition, we see that there is 80% of the cancer patients suffer from cachexia, right? And you have to maintain their health so that they can present themselves for the next cycle of chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So, for maintaining their health, then you will have to give the kind of proteins, amino acids, and combination of micronutrients and antioxidants which are required for that disease state. So, these are the examples of medical nutrition which is designed for medical state. And then, of course, the last stage is the pharma drugs. We all know we take many medicines day in, day out, NSAIDs, we take all the drugs. So, this is the complete spectrum of health. And as per the state of a person, the person can select from the food to the drugs. Now, going to the next slide. Now, what do you mean by nutraceutical? So, I will go back and I will ask you people if somebody of you can define nutraceutical. What do you mean by nutraceutical? Just a guess. It may be wrong. We will see it in the coming slides. If some one or two people wants to unmute themselves and answer the question, what are nutraceuticals? Is anybody taking the guess or we should move forward? Okay, I don't see any answer coming. I hope everybody is listening. Hello. Have we muted the participants or they can unmute themselves?
We have one response from the participant. I'll just read it out. Nutraceutical is a marketing term used to imply a pharmaceutical effect from a compound or food product that has not been scientifically confirmed.
Yeah, there's one more answer. Any food that has potential to provide health benefit. Okay. Sure. So, if you see the definition says that it is derived from the food itself, but it is in potent amount. We go to the next slide. Just a second. The slides are not. Yeah. So, what are nutraceuticals? So there are various definitions given to nutraceutical. Each body gives different definition, and I have just captured couple of them over here. So nutraceutical is any substance that is a food or part of food that provides medicinal or health benefit, including the prevention and treatment of disease. So we all should know that nutraceuticals basically is a preventive therapy while drugs are for treatment. So if we take the nutraceutical at right time from a preventive dose, we prevent ourselves from landing into disease state. And as I was giving you the right example of turmeric in the earlier slide, so it's derived from the food itself. So from the turmeric itself, curcumins, the active forms, are derived, and then those are used as antioxidants in the form of nutraceuticals. According to the Ministry of Canada, it defines nutraceutical as a product isolated or purified from the food, generally sold in medical form, not assisted with food, and demonstrated with the physiological benefit and provide protection against the chronic disease. So both the definitions are almost the same, and you must have got the gist of it, that it is the extract from the food itself in a concentrated form and has demonstrated the physiological benefit to protect us from any chronic diseases. Now, if we look at the basic definition of nutraceutical and how are they classified, so there are various ways, you can classify them according to chemical structure, their natural source. The source becomes a classification. But usually, the nutraceuticals are divided into potential nutraceuticals and established nutraceuticals. Now, when you see established nutraceuticals, what makes them different? So, for established nutraceuticals, lot of clinical studies have been done and they have been established to provide that benefit. Now, again, the curcumins have been extremely studied and it has been well established that yes, they are having a power of antioxidant. But if I take you the newer molecule, uh, like astaxanthin or other newer molecules which are coming, they are potential nutraceutical, which has a promise of doing certain activity in the body, but lot more research has to be done to show its benefit. So these are the two major classifications under which the nutraceuticals are divided. And right now, you see the nutraceutical industry is very wide, starting from the scratch. I mean, identifying the right nutraceutical, designing it in the product, developing the product at the CMO level where food technology and everything comes into play. Then there are clinical studies. Then there is a various another facet of making claims. That in itself is a very big topic. That how do you make claims? Do you make it the content claim? Are you making it health ingredient based claim? Are you making the claims from clinical perspective? So the topic is very wide, but we will be touching a few of the topics today. So, what nutraceutical mainly consist of? Now, there are wide varieties which come under the umbrella of nutraceuticals. So, any substance, so it consists of nutrients, any herbal or phytochemicals, or dietary supplements. And when you see the market of nutraceutical, they are always divided according to this criteria. When we talk about nutrients, they are mainly the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, which, as I was giving you one example in cancer nutrition, where we need good amount of protein and amino acids, that those come under the nutrients. Any herbal or botanical can be used, or prebiotic, probiotics, they can be used as dietary supplements. So, uh, just a second. What are the potential of nutraceutical and why pharma companies are coming into it? So here I have made a grid to explain you why pharma companies are now venturing into nutraceutical. 5 years back, you had never heard of it, right? Food companies are also coming into nutraceutical. And why we are talking about it? So, first, what are the challenges which a nutraceutical company is facing on the pharma companies are facing? So, declining return on R&D investment. Now, as you see for the drug investment, in the similar way, pharma companies have to invest uh, for the nutraceuticals also, starting from the designing of the product, you have to develop the product in the R&D, you have to do the clinical trials, and everything is different as compared to drug, and everything is time consuming and money consuming. There is a regulatory oversight also on this, because the regulations are pretty different for nutraceutical versus the drugs. There is always a pressure on the health budgets. But what is relevant to the pharma companies from a nutraceutical angle? That they already have the team who has the science backing. The second is that if you see that there is price control on most of the drugs, because few drugs come under the essential category, and for that government has now imposed price control, and because of that the profits of pharma companies are coming down, and that's one of the reason that they are venturing into the nutraceutical. So it is one of the new revenue source for them, and most purchases of this are coming from the consumer. So you don't need a doctor prescription for this. A normal consumer over the counter can purchase this, while at the same time the regulatory scenario is not as tough as a drug, and that's why pharma companies are entering into it. Now if we look at the scenario of food companies, they see, so FMCG, fast moving goods, if they this kind of companies enter into nutraceutical, they will be looking at the slow growth, because these are not as fast moving as the FMCG product which they are making, like salt or sugar free or anything. And in the same way, but they want to differentiate themselves, they want to enter into a different category where the products are differentiated and have higher margins. Like for example, if one company is selling salt or jams, the margins are not that huge, versus if they venture into nutraceutical, the science which they bring in is differentiated and they have higher margins to it. And innovative product, if you make, you have good bargain power, so you can bargain for the science which you bring in on the product. So that's the scenario why you see that pharma companies and food companies are entering into this nutraceutical. And in last 5 years, you have seen that it is on the boom and everybody is talking about it. So when you pass out from your colleges, this will be extremely relevant for you. Now, nutraceutical and how they are important in disease prevention. So we saw the spectrum of nutraceutical. So they help you in both health promotion also and in disease prevention also. So there are, if you see over here, I will not go through each and every detail of the disease, but they also, for the prevention also, they can act as a medium for GI health. They can have antioxidant potential, as I was talking about you, and be a preventive in cardiovascular diseases or osteoporosis. They also help in prolonging the lifespan, helps in reproductive health. Along with that, in disease prevention also, I gave you few examples of cancer. You have zeaxanthin and other nutraceuticals which will help in eye disorder. For obesity also, you have the actives which will help in controlling the appetite, increasing the BMR, so that obesity can be tackled, diabetes can be tackled. So nutraceuticals act as both in health promotion and in disease prevention. Some examples, as I have just quoted over here. Suppose if you're talking about joint health, what are the nutraceuticals? So glucosamine is the nutraceutical which helps in lubricating the joints and helps in the joint health. And where it is found? So it is found in ligament, cartilages of animals, tissues, and tendons. So these are extracted from there, and the concentrated source is put into a capsule format, and then it is used for the joint health. In the similar way, you can see for cardiovascular diseases, there are many nutraceuticals which have been researched. So, CoQ10, melatonin, DHA, resveratrol, all these have beneficial effect in cardiovascular diseases, and they are extracted. So, we eat grapes, right? We eat grapes during the season. We eat carrot during the season, but the level at which we eat, we don't get that potent dose. So, what these nutraceuticals usually do is they extract the potent active and then make it in a capsule or in a powder form or any other form, and then give it to the patient for the health benefit. Similarly, for the eye health, lycopene is there, carotenoids are there. All this have shown positive effect. In cancer prevention also, antioxidants play a very important role. Now, allergic acid, which is extracted from tea, has a very positive effect on cancer prevention when the researchers have seen. But how much of tea will you drink to get that active, right? So what science has done, they have extracted the allergic acid from that tea and then make it in a potent capsule form, and then it is given to the cancer patient. So that's the role of nutraceutical. Now, why are we talking about it? And after this definition, if you see the recent market of nutraceutical, it is booming like anything. So the Indian nutraceutical market, if we talk about the data, has increased by 13.5% from, and it is going to improve only. Like if you see the trends from 2024 to 2030, it's going to increase at a CAGR of 13.5. And this source also gives us some data that if you see the global market of nutraceutical, we, India, represent almost 9.5% of the global nutraceutical market. So it's very significant if you see right now. And with this increase, which you are seeing right now in front of you, we will be pioneering in the nutraceutical market in next 6 to 10 years. And we will be having almost 25% of the share. And therefore, we are talking about the nutraceutical and the advantages of them. Now, why India is important from a nutraceutical market and why India is becoming a nutraceutical hub? So, the first important thing is better GDP growth rate among the other economies. Now, see, nutraceutical comes with its own cost, right? It will be costlier than the normal food you take. But we know that the spending capacity of Indian population is increasing. They are being aware of what they should take to have a better health. The life expectancy of the person is also increasing, and he wants to lead a healthy life till he dies, and therefore he is ready to spend. And that's why the nutraceutical market is increasing. The second point, a large coastline makes it an ideal manufacturing hub for from a global value chain perspective. So we have seen the construction, I mean the India geography is such that we have lot of coastline, and it's easy to do the business with India from a coastal perspective, and it is easy to have a ideal manufacturing site over here. And the government these days is also giving lot of attention to nutraceutical, and if anybody wants to put up a marketing manufacturing hub, it's very easy for them. The approvals and all are becoming pretty faster. Now, India, the third point, India is the home to largest number of US FDA approved plants. So this is because The pharma companies are entering into nutraceuticals. These pharma companies already have their plants which are FDA approved. And because of that approval, they are manufacturing the pharma drugs over there. Now they can use this same manufacturing for the nutraceutical, and this then nutraceuticals will be eligible for sale throughout other countries because the manufacturing has happened in a US FDA approved plant. So that's one of the benefit for the nutraceutical hub in India. Ample of ingredients are available in India. So we have the legacy of Ayurveda, where so many ingredients have been grown. We have so many of the herbs and all growing in various parts of India, which will be helpful as a raw material to the nutraceutical industry. The next one is that India has the lowest labor cost among Southeast Asia. So we all know, right? The data centers, the call centers, and everything are in India because of the low cost, the labor cost in India. And because that's one of the reason for nutraceutical also flourishing over here because the labor cost are pretty less over here. Again, the last one we talked about in the earlier slides that there is significant interest from the FMCG and the pharma companies over here. I will take a pause over here. I have been talking. Any questions till now? I can take it up right now. We take 2 minutes break and I go ahead. Otherwise, it will be a monologue. Only I am talking.
We have one question in the chat box. Is food and pharma products manufactured in the same premises?
So there are different type of licenses which a company has. If the company has the US FDA approval for pharma, they have certain norms to be applicable for the nutraceuticals also. Foods are not in the same value chain. Foods are manufactured very differently. But if you have some capsules or something into Nutra, that can be manufactured into the pharma plant. But if you are entering into sachets, you're entering into powder formats or talking about the general foods or gummies, they cannot be manufactured in the drug plant.
And that's all the question. One more that is there is what is the difference between nutraceutical product and Ayurvedic product as both have a plant source?
Agreed. But if you see Ayurveda is a treatment. So if you see, Ayurvedic product in itself is a treatment, and allopathy is, which is the pharma drugs which we are talking about. So Ayurveda is also divided further into prevention and treatment, right? Many of us don't take allopathy and we believe in Ayurvedic medicines. So Ayurveda in that way is also divided.
The last question in the chat box is, ma'am, if one intends to start a nutraceutical manufacturing company as a third party, is that possible?
Yeah, it's very much possible. As a third party, see, you can venture into first is that you do the research. There are globally so many ingredients which are being researched, right, in US and all. You connect with them, you see that the ingredient is very good. You bring that ingredient to India and you become a supplier of that ingredient to the India and you pitch that science and that product to the Indian, companies, FMCGs who are entering into it. The second way is you can become a CMO. You can manufacture what a company gives you. So there are various facets in which you can start with your business.
Great, thank you, ma'am. I think we can resume with the session, ma'am. We'll take up the.
Sure. Now, so We saw that nutraceuticals and all are important, why they are important, what is the importance in India. So now we are shifting our gaze to the clinicals. Why clinicals are important in nutraceutical per se, right? And nutraceuticals and the clinicals in food are very different from what we have in pharma. So going to my next slide, importance of clinical trial in nutraceutical. First, if we talk about is the claim validation. Now, there are so many companies which have entered into nutrition. If I take an example of diabetes, Sun Pharma is into diabetic health food drink. Dr. Reddy's is into diabetes product. If you see GSK, Unilever, you have Mundi Pharma, all of them are into diabetes food product. All are making the claims of high protein, high fiber, low carbs, this, that. So they in the market, they market is flooded with the product. But how will you differentiate your product than the other product? What is the superiority which you bring? So for that, if you do a clinical trial, the clinical trial will give you the benefit of claims. Now, if I give you an example of Celevida, which has been launched by Dr. Reddy's, it's in market from last 6 years and it has been designed for diabetic nutrition, right? We have done a lot of clinicals on those products and you see that the product is clinically proven to manage HbA1c. So that we saw the reduction in HbA1c, 24-hour glucose control was the benefit and we could have an impact on fasting blood sugar levels. So, when you have this differentiation in the product, you can make better claims and that can resonate well. So, clinicals are important from the claim validation perspective. The second is consumer centricity. Consumers these days don't believe on the general claims. They want claims which resonate to them. That suppose if I am diabetic, I want something which will help reduce my HbA1c or control my blood sugar levels. So clinicals help us to make those kind of claims. Second is the doctor validation. Now, when you are marketing this product, your GTM or the go to market strategy can be through doctors also. Because most of the patients, when detected with diabetes or hypertension or any obesity you can take, they do visit doctors and seek their advice. Over here, when you want doctor to talk about your product, if doctor sees that clinicals have been done on product, the doctor validation is very important. Doctors have the trust on that and then they can write the product. One example I can give over here, Pediasure. Pediasure, when it entered the market, it was only written by the doctors. So the go-to market strategy was they did not enter through TV, media, or anything. They entered through the doctors. Doctors started writing the product. They thought or they understand that the product is good for the kids. They started writing, and it became a number one product to be written by the doctors for kids. Once the doctor validation was there on the brand, then they started the consumer advertisement. And their consumer advertisement was number one prescribed product from the doctors, right? And consumers also believe on doctors a lot. So doctor validation helps you, and for doctor validation clinical trials are important. If you have any safety concern, like suppose if the product is designed, clinical trials you give the product for 3 months, 6 months, and you see that if were there any safety concerns or the product was good to have. So when you are confirmed that there is no concern about that, you have clearly you can say to the doctors that there are no safety concerns for the product. Differentiation is one point which we already talked in the claims, that how we differentiate our claims and the product. For that, nutraceutical clinicals are very beneficial. And the most important one, the FSSAI approval and the ASCI support. So in the start, when Madam talked about that you deal very closely with the regulatory bodies and all, you know that the FSSAI environment is changing very quickly. And it is so dynamic. Like yesterday only, there was one article that, the FSSAI is now trying to put a cap on the pricing of, or they're just proposing to put a cap on the, the way it is, the cost of the product, right? You cannot sell it too costly, which is not done, which will not be done in the near future. But yeah, FSSAI plays a very important role, and we need to get the approval of these products before we send it to the market. So when we have done the clinicals on it, it becomes easy to get the FSSAI approval. And ASCI is the advertisement board. Suppose you are making any advertisement on media and you are making any claims, if you have done a clinical, supporting that claims through clinicals become very easy. So this is the importance of clinical trials in nutraceutical. Now, what are the prerequisites for the development of clinical studies? So I will not go in detail, but we will have to see that the approach, what approach we keep for designing the clinical trial is very important. We have to keep in mind the target audience. Suppose if it is diabetic subjects, what they are looking at. We have to discuss with the doctors, like what are the endpoints which a doctor is looking at, and then design the clinical accordingly so that it gives us the claim what we want. The designing of the clinical trial also has to happen in such a way that it is effective and the outcomes are also supporting the claims and thereby supporting our regulatory data, which we are going to support. In the process, the strict vigilance at all level of stages of clinical trial process has to be given. So, see, right now we are looking at a gist of clinical trial, but clinical trial in itself is altogether a different business within nutraceutical. And what we will be touching today is just the basic of it. So, process. The process has to be following the good clinical practice, the GCP practice. So, that has to be kept in mind. Publishing value. Now, publishing a clinical trial becomes very important. Suppose you have done a good clinical trial, you got good results and everything, but you have to publish it. The publishing helps you in proving that to the doctors. Publishing helps you in making good claims, and it also gives at the same time when your name comes on that paper, it proves that you have worked on it. So there is a publishing value to any clinical, and it has to be done. And that also, gives the confidence that the clinical trial was designed in accordance with the prerequisites of what is needed for the publishing. Because when you publish any of the clinical trial, there are certain criterias which the journal will ask, like what was the blinding, was it randomized. All this thing in the study design also plays a very important role. So study design, like was it a blinded study? Was it was a single arm study or a double arm study? What was the intervention plan? What it was for 3 months or 6 months? All that comes into the study design, and that has to be taken into consideration. Coming to study population, now, the recruitment of representative product or the target population is very important. Suppose you have designed one product for diabetic patients and you want to do a clinical trial on it, and you want to position that product for the diabetic population, but in the inclusion and exclusion criteria, if not, Mahek, can I request you to go on mute, please? Yeah. So if you do not include the diabetic population, so the what is the inclusion of diabetic population? So based on the blood sugar levels, based on the HbA1c, if that is not included in your inclusion and exclusion criteria, even if you do a good clinical trial, you will be questioned that the study is being designed for diabetic population, but the diabetic population is not represented in your inclusion or exclusion criteria. So the study population also has to be designed in such a way. Again, I will take one more example over here. Suppose you are doing a clinical trial on anemia, right? And if you want to show that the product is effective in improving anemia, if you take mild anemic population like 11 grams, the chances of you getting a positive result is less because they are mild anemic, right? And the probability of success becomes low. But if you go to a population where they are severe anemic or at least moderate anemic, and then you give your product which has good amount of the intervention, in this case iron, the probability of success becomes good. In that also, you cannot take a population which is severely anemic, because severely anemic populations are being treated by the pharma agent. So I wanted to explain you that the study population becomes very important in clinical trial. Now, there are certain considerations when you design any clinical trial or clinical research. What is the test nutrient or the dietary pattern? Now, what happens in the nutraceutical or food clinical trial? We cannot stop a patient from taking the normal food which he is taking in day-to-day life, right? So his dietary pattern has to be kept in mind while you are including that patient population in the clinical trial. The test nutrient, is it effective? Will it be effective in that patient population? Has to be kept in mind. The background status of the patient. Suppose you are doing some trial wherein you are looking at the cancer patient, and we know that smoking is one of the confounding factor, and if you do not put that as a background status, and in the background status you do not exclude that kind of patients who are into smoking, the impact of your product during the intervention time is going to be impacted. The How are you going to deliver your test product or a supplement? Will it be mixed with the food? How is it going to be delivered? Where it is getting absorbed in the body? All that pathophysiology has to be taken into consideration. Now we all know that a randomized clinical trial where you have a controlled arm or and you have a test arm are the ideal. But when you are designing, suppose, a clinical trial for cancer patients, you cannot have a control arm. They are cancer patients, and you cannot devoid them of certain benefit or certain medicines which you are going to study. So, in many cases, control arms or controls are not possible. Coming to the length of the study. Now, length of the study also becomes important when you keep in mind the outcomes which you want to see. Suppose you want to see the sarcopenia in cancer patients, right? And to see the impact of sarcopenia, that is the loss of muscle mass, one of the outcome is hand grip dynamometer. So this hand grip dynamometer is used to see the strength of the patient who are losing the muscle mass. Now, you cannot get the improvement in this muscle mass or change in this hand grip dynamometer in 1 month. So you have to see that how much time is required for the change, right? Suppose if you are doing a hemoglobin estimation, you should have minimum 1 month of intervention, and then you should see the baseline and the end line, and then the probability of success is more. Suppose you are doing a cholesterol clinical trial. We know that the changes in the cholesterol half life and all will be achieved only after 3 months, and therefore you see that the length of clinical trial when done for studying cholesterol is minimum 3 months. Blinding, we talked about, it's not possible in many of the studies. And study population, what you select, is very important in the nutrition research. Now, what are the challenges in nutraceutical trial design? The first and the foremost is the financial challenge. Why financial challenge? Because the studies are long term. It's not a drug that you have taken right now. The drug will immediately go in your body. It will be absorbed, and in next 6 seconds, it will start giving its action. In 2 hours, it will show the action. So a dosage is given, and your yeah. So your trial is finished in a week's time or 15 days. Over here, as we saw that the clinical trial may go as long as 15, as long as 1 month, 3 months. If you want to do a clinical trial where you are trying to see the impact of your uh, product into PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you are looking at the changes in your cycles, monthly cycles, there you will need 6 months of intervention. So, for this 6 months of intervention, the financial input is very huge. So, there are financial challenges. The inclusion criteria and the exclusion criteria also poses the challenge, because this kind of patients will have to adhere to what you are saying, like restrict that, restrict this, follow this, you will have to take this thrice a day, whatever it is, that has to be taken into consideration. So the demand on participants is very high in the nutraceutical trials versus the drug trials, where they are short term. Open label versus blinded. Now, open label is the consumer knows what he is eating, versus blinding. Now, consumer may not believe. Now, I can give you one example of one of the enteral feed which we had made. It was to be used in ICU. We mounted a clinical trial on that. But the recruitment of that was very slow, because we have to understand the patient to whom we were giving that product was in ICU, and that product had to be taken through tube feeding. And when you enter any of the clinical trial, the patient has to give an informed consent form that he is ready to take this trial product. Now, though we are confident that the product is working and it will have benefit on the patient, that we have to see the mentality of the patient and his caretaker, that he is an ICU. Will they allow to give them something which is experimental, right? Which is blinded. They don't know what is going in that. So that is a situation where you can get very less recruitment, and the study time also prolongs. So that are few challenges which we face in the clinical trial. Using the surrogate markers. Now, for example, you are showing your impact on cholesterol reduction, right? Now, if you want to show, and if you have a pressure that you have to show the impact very quickly, but you, from a science perspective, know that cholesterol changes will happen only 3 months down the line. So then you will have to look for surrogate markers like RLP cholesterol, remnant like protein cholesterol, which changes in 15 days based on the inputs or the nutrition which is going inside. So, using the surrogate markers also is a challenge in the nutraceutical trial design. In drugs, it is pretty clear. For example, it is for diabetes. Is the diabetes blood sugar coming down or not? Or in cancer patients, are we making the patient cancer free or not? But in nutrition, you cannot do that. You will have to have a surrogate marker to show that the nutrition or a nutraceutical is working to support the outcome of that product. So these are few of the challenges which we face in the nutraceutical design. So in the summary, it's a very mammoth task, I can tell you. It's a long 2 to 3 years of clinical trials, which take one clinical trial can take. And it starts from development of protocol, data management comes in, so development of CRFs and all are there. Study implementation at the ground level, where actually you are giving the product to the patient, and before that, you have to manufacture that product. Study monitoring plays a very important role because a study monitor is at site and he sees that the patient is taking the product every day, every week, as it is written in the protocol. Is the data captured well? So, study monitoring in itself is altogether a different uh, area. Data analysis also takes good time. So once you have the data, you do the data cleaning. Data cleaning is then followed by data freeze. After the data freeze, there is data analysis. Based on data analysis, we do the report writing and manuscript writing. So CSR is produced, then the manuscript writing happens. And the importance of manuscript writing and publication, we already saw in the earlier slides. So in summary, this is the process for clinical trials in nutraceutical. So that's all from my end. So this was just a brief about what is nutraceutical and what are kind of nutraceutical clinical trial challenges and how we do it. So
Excuse me, can I have one question?
yeah, please.
Yeah, all the nutraceuticals who are there in the market are clinically trialed and then they are into market, or
No, it's not
no?
necessary. It depends on the company's goal or the vision. Like, for example, here in Dr. Reddy's, it's our motto to develop differentiated product clinically proven. So, if you see in the market right now, any product for diabetes nutrition, Celevida DLS, which is for the dialysis patient, if you see our liver nutrition products, Celevida Live, all the products are clinically proven. But to answer your question, it's not necessary that clinicals have to be done on nutraceutical.
Yeah, if the clinicals are done as a nutritionist, clinical nutritionist, I
Mhm.
can prescribe the particular nutraceutical authentically. For example, Cyrus is the product now. You have a vitamin D gummies.
Yes.
So you claim it as a 600 IU, 300 IU, one gummy, right?
Yeah.
So as a maintenance dose, if at all I'm giving, how long I can and how much it will improve the daily requirement of the vitamin D, right? If we have a clinical trial, we can surpass the pharmacology like D rise or whatever the therapeutic 6,000 IU they prescribe.
Hmm.
We can, and these gummies are also so tasty and handy, and this will make a miracle, as I suppose. So I wanted
Exactly.
to ask you if at all, even the marketing persons who come, I ask them if you have a studies, let me have so that authentically I can claim. So in this
Exactly,
purview,
Vidya.
your views, please.
Yeah. So you're right, Vidya. And as I told that Doctor's authentication is very important, doctor or clinical nutritionist. So as rightly said by you, suppose if you have a clinical, you know that in a time frame of 1 month or 2 months, what was the impact of that active on the blood levels, of serum levels of vitamin D, and then you can prescribe that with confidence that I don't want to give a therapeutic dose which is 6,000 IU, because it can have toxicity also, right? So, based on the patient baseline level, if you have a clinical, you can give this maintenance dose of 300 IU or 400 IU, which is within the RDA limit, and it gives a confidence to the dietitian or doctor. So, that's the importance of clinical trial.
Thank you, ma'am. We have some questions in the chat box as well. I'll read them for you. Uh,
Yeah.
what are the prerequisites while applying for a company in a company for clinical nutrition position or in medical sciences or clinical trials? What kind of degrees allow students to apply for such positions?
So I mean, it's every company has its own selection criteria, but once you have done masters, you can apply for, the intern role. It can be into clinical development, or it can be into the nutrition science. Preference definitely is given to someone who has done PhD, because in PhD you do the research actually at the ground level, and then you present yourselves to the company. But PhD, I would say, is not mandatory. After masters, if you have worked in a company which gave you a chance of doing clinical trial under somebody's supervision, and then 2 3 years down the line you have at least once complete life cycle of clinical which you have seen, it can be happening that, and for one life cycle you were under someone, in next life cycle of 2 to 3 years you can do it independently, so it gives you the confidence and you can handle the clinical. So that's the framework in which we work.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is how many patients are required for clinical trials, and how over what period, how much period should a clinical trial be conducted for nutraceuticals?
So it depends on the kind of trial you are doing. As I was telling, suppose you are testing vitamin D, as Vidya was telling, you will have to do it for minimum 1 month. If you are doing for cholesterol, it has to be for 3 months. If you are testing some product for PCOS, it has to be for 6 months, because you need to see the regularization of cycle. So it depends on that. And what was the first part of the question? I'm missing it.
Uh, how many patients do we
Yeah,
require?
again, yeah. So the patients also, you power the study. So how do you power the study? Based on the, so there is a formula for that. Based on the prevalence of the disease, you calculate the sample size. For each and every clinical study, you have to calculate the sample size, and that is determined. And one of the factor is the prevalence of the disease in that country. So the sample size differs from, I mean, the therapy area where you are studying.
Next question is, ma'am, for the selection of a new nutraceutical compound, assuming its extracted forms is from a natural source, how does one go identifying and, more importantly, determining where a possible source of such new potential nutraceutical compound is? And is there any specific procedure for that?
There are specific procedures for each and every, if it's a new nutraceutical, right? If it is a new nutraceutical, first of all, is it FDA approved, GRAS approved, and safe? Second can be, are there animal models of experiments done on the pathophysiology, how it works in the body? So animal model, then the human model, then what are the dosages? So dosages have to be elicited through the clinical trial. So if you are doing a novel food, you are entering into a novel nutraceutical, it's a mammoth task. So only big companies venture into it and do the R&D to make that nutraceutical famous, because we saw earlier that nutraceuticals are divided into potential and established. So usually we deal with the established nutraceutical, and for potential nutraceutical, big companies do lot of investment, lot of clinical trials, and then try to make it into the established section.
Another question that is there, ma'am. What are the policies regarding post-trial access to treatments for participants, like all those who participate in the clinical trials, especially in case where there are successful outcomes?
Mhm. So basically, it's an ICFs are generated for each and every clinical trial. ICFs are informed consent form. So the person who is enrolling for the clinical trial is given each and every detail of how the procedure is going to be, how long it is going to be, and all the details apart from what is the intervention. All the it is given. He signs that, and then the clinical trial starts on that. In most of the clinical trials, for each visit, money is also given to the patient.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, how are the role of placebos determined, especially in place of nutraceuticals while conducting the clinical trials?
So, role of placebo, for example, suppose you are given one capsule, right? And you think that capsule is, because I'm taking this capsule, there is a mind frame that yes, I'm getting better, right? In that sense, a placebo is generated where the capsule will be there, but it will have just maltodextrin or something which is not an active. So in that way, the placebo is that the patient is just thinking that I'm taking, for example, any hypertension patient, right? If he does not take a pill, which is maybe 25 milligram, he has not taken the pill in the morning, or he forgot that, that itself has a tension, it creates a tension, and he feels, oh, my blood pressure is going up, while it's not there. It's all of mental game which is there. So to control that kind of effect, placebos are usually given.
Last couple of questions, ma'am. How companies overcome the low bioavailability issues of some bioactive compounds while formulating their nutraceutical products?
If the product is actually low bioavailable, then they have to work towards increasing the bioavailability of that product. Because if it is low bioavailable and you will have to, you are selling it for a higher price, you will not see the efficacy of that product during the clinical, and the consumer will not get the benefit of it. Even though suppose you're not doing clinical, you are giving that product, the consumer may take it for 1 month, 2 months, but if he doesn't see the impact of that, he will start losing the confidence, and he will see that it's not impacting. He will stop using that product. So the product which you give has to have good bioavailability.
Uh,
And there are various techniques. I mean, suppose Brahmi. Brahmi, when taken in in raw form, it in stomach it gets materialized, and it is not bioavailable. So then you do the micro encapsulation of that, so that it is directly available at the villi and it is absorbed from there. So all those techniques are available.
One of the last questions. Especially while conducting clinical trials in India, are there any ethical, regional challenges and considerations that have to be taken into account while setting up these clinical trials?
Yeah, so if you set up a clinical trial, it goes through the institutional ethical board. So there is an institutional ethical board who reviews your protocol, and they keep the patient benefit in mind, and then they review your protocol. Once the ethics committee review your protocol, you have to also register your clinical trial on CTRA registration. This is a central clinical trial registry where you have to register your clinical trial, and government has its eye on this portal that what kind of clinical trials you are doing. They are not, if they are not harmful for the patient, and the same is being studied by the institutional ethical board.
Thank you, ma'am. Last question, ma'am, from a consumer point of view. While choosing your health supplements or nutraceuticals, how should a consumer determine that they are taking a high quality nutraceuticals? And what specifically on the label should the consumer look for, especially when there is a lot of chaos regarding choosing a drug licensed product and a food licensed product?
It's totally dependent on the product company, the company ethics, what the claims the company is making. For example, I mean, if there are small companies, they don't go into the nuances of shelf life. Is the product having that amount what they are claiming on the label till the end of shelf life? They can mislead the consumer by not putting the right values. So it depends on the company ethics, and small companies may not. I'm not claiming that they don't adhere to, but they may not adhere to. And even big companies can, not adhere. So it completely depends on the company.
Thank you, ma'am. One last question that popped up in the chat box.
Sure.
How much variations allowed by are allowed by FSSAI for nutrients to be labeled on the label?
So right now, FSSAI has allowed minus 90%. So suppose if you are saying 10 grams of protein on your pack, end of shelf life, if you are having 9, it is okay. So 90% is allowed. The upper limits are not set right now by FSSAI, but while designing, we keep in mind that it should not exceed the upper tolerable limits which are given for the nutrients.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's all the questions that we have in the chat box. It was indeed a pleasure listening to you. Being a graduate from the nutraceuticals course of Khalsa, this topic was very close to my heart, and you've done a beautiful justice to the topic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful session.
Most welcome. Thank you so much.
Participants, it's been a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for being an interactive crowd. I'm sure ma'am agrees to that. Uh,
Yes, indeed.
Beautiful questions that came up. With that, we are announcing our next session in the series. The series will be followed by a session on biostatistical insights and elevating your food technology research. And we have an expert, Dr. Shruti Kakodkar, who's the assistant professor in the Department of Life Sciences from SK Somaiya. And I am sure all of you will gain tremendous insights into your research plans from a biostatistical point of view by attending this session. So look forward to all of you attending this session, and I thank our speaker once again, as well as AFSTI Mumbai chapter and chamber team for their constant support and for all the efforts that they have taken in conducting such fruitful sessions.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.